At the same time that chronic health conditions have dramatically increased among Americans, well, the use of vegetable seed oils has also increased. In fact, it's gotten to the point now that seed oils have essentially become ubiquitous in the American diet. Quote, vegetable oils are ubiquitous in restaurants and fast food and packaged food, including bread, crackers, cereal, granola, chips, dried fruits, salad dressings, mayonnaise, sauces, fried foods, ice cream, baked goods, and other snacks. Vegetable oils now account for 20% of our daily calories, which represents the greatest increase in sources of calories in the last 100 years, since the globalization era began. And it really is the case that when you look at the rates of things like diabetes, hypertension, obesity, dementia, as well as many other different chronic health problems, the surge in incidence rates truly does parallel the increasing use of seed oils in the American diet. Now, that of course could be a coincidence. There might be something else behind the scenes leading to all these problems, some underlying cause. However, there is a solid growing body of scientific research showing that seed oils, they do increase the risk of and are associated with many of the health conditions plaguing Americans. And just to be clear, when I say seed oils, I'm specifically referring to things like these: canola oil, corn oil, grapeseed oil, rice bran oil, soy oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, as well as cottonseed oil. These are all examples of ultra-processed oils that are potentially, despite their ubiquitous use in the American diet, toxic to your health. And the reason for why that is, well, it was explained very succinctly by Dr. Simon Godek, a doctor and researcher over in Brazil. He laid out how the extraction process for these vegetable seed oils, they involve several unnatural methods, such as the use of high heat and chemical solvents, which leads to oxidation and the abundance of trans fats. He specifically laid out how omega-6 fatty acids, which are abundant in these vegetable seed oils, can cause a myriad of problems, such as chronic inflammation as well as autoimmune diseases. Here's specifically what the doctor wrote. Quote, unnatural extraction process. Unlike coconut or olive oil, which can be extracted through pressing, seed oils like canola, soybean, and corn oil require unnatural methods for extraction. They undergo processes involving high heat and chemical solvents like petroleum, leading to oxidation and the formation of trans fats even before they reach your kitchen. And indeed, the way that seed oils are typically produced is that they are mechanically pressed with the use of high heat, and then they're processed with chemicals, with the most typical chemical being hexane, which outside of seed oil extraction is otherwise used as an industrial cleaner as well as a degreaser. And despite the fact that it's been shown to have adverse effects on human health in general, well, there's a bit of a loophole which allows seed oil manufacturers to not have to list hexane on the ingredients label. Here's how the NIH describes it over on their website. Quote, hexane is a solvent used extensively in the food industry for the extraction of various products such as vegetable oils, fats, flavors, fragrances, color additives, or other bioactive ingredients. As it is classified as a processing aid, it does not have to be declared on the label under current legislation. Very cool. Dr. Godek then goes on to chronicle how the rise in seed oil use parallels the rise in these chronic health conditions in American society. Quote, a modern dietary addition. Industrial seed oils are a recent addition to our diet, exploding in consumption from virtually zero in the early 1900s to 70 pounds per year per person today. This dramatic increase corresponds with a surge in chronic health issues, suggesting a link between seed oil consumption and modern diseases. Although again, while there is a growing body of research showing a correlation between the two, between seed oils and these chronic health conditions, it's always worth highlighting that a correlation does not necessarily mean that one thing causes the other. There might be some underlying factor leading to a spike in chronic health conditions aside from seed oils. Regardless though, the doctor continues in his next point to highlight one mechanism why one might be causing the other. Quote, omega-6 and inflammation. Vegetable oils are high in omega-6 fatty acids, especially linoleic acid, which is a precursor to pro-inflammatory echinocyids. These molecules can cause chronic inflammation and contribute to autoimmune diseases. The excessive consumption of omega-6 without the balance of omega-3 exacerbates these health issues. And as he mentioned there, it appears that it's the balance between omega-3s and omega-6s which is causing much of the problem. According to this analysis that you can see up on your screen, which came from researchers out of Missouri, quote, traditionally, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in diets was around 4 to 1 or lower. However, in contemporary Western diets, this ratio has significantly decreased to about 20 to 1, or even higher. This dietary shift can contribute to an excessive and sustained inflammatory response in the body, leading to chronic low-grade inflammation. And having your body be in this chronic state of low-level inflammation, well, that's been shown to be associated with both physical as well as psychological disorders. As just one example of this relationship, on your screen is a study from 2018 published in the Clinical Journal of Pain. And this study, it found that, quote, among adult participants with knee pain, those with a high omega-6 to omega-3 ratio suffered more clinical pain and functional limitation, as well as with higher experimental pain sensitivity and psychosocial distress. Furthermore, besides chronic inflammation, or perhaps alongside chronic inflammation, Dr. Godek then points out another side effect that consuming too many seed oils in great quantity can have. Quote, oxidative stress and cancer. Studies have shown that diets high in vegetable oils, particularly linoleic acid, lead to oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, and genetic damage. These factors are instrumental in promoting cancer, with some studies revealing a fourfold increase in metastasis in diets high in these oils. Furthermore, aside from the cancer aspect, looking at all-cause mortality, here's what the doctor added. Quote, increased mortality rate. Over a 7-year study, groups consuming high amounts of vegetable oil had a 62% greater all-cause mortality rate compared to those with lower consumption. This risk increase is more significant than that associated with heavy smoking or obesity. And indeed, the mortality study that he referenced in that statement right there is this one here, published in the pages of the British Medical Journal back in the year 2013. And this study, it found that men who replaced saturated fats, which usually come from animals or other such sources, when they replaced those with omega-6 linoleic acids from vegetable oils, these men had higher rates of heart disease and even of death. Here was part of what the study's conclusion said. Quote, in this cohort, substituting dietary linoleic acid in place of saturated fats increased the rates of death from all causes, coronary heart disease, and cardiovascular disease. An updated meta-analysis of linoleic acid intervention trials showed no evidence of cardiovascular benefit. These findings could have important implications for worldwide dietary advice to substitute omega-6 linoleic acid or polyunsaturated fats in general for saturated fats. And there are many, many other such studies as well, such as this one here, which came out of Minnesota. It was also published in the British Medical Journal, which exposed the overestimation that government agencies rely on for their recommendations when they tell people to switch away from saturated fats. And there is a plethora of other studies showing the same thing as well. I'll link several of them down into the description box below. Now, having said all that about seed oils, in terms of a possible solution, well, for one, because seed oils have become so ubiquitous at restaurants, consider cooking more meals at home. And then at home, consider using more traditional forms of fat when cooking, such as tallow, ghee, and butter, as well as some vegetable oils that are not so highly processed, such as olive oil and avocado oil. And avocado oil in particular has the highest smoking point among all vegetable oils. And so in that sense, it really is good for cooking, such as sautéing or frying something up. Although I will mention that I am by no means a doctor, and this is by no means medical advice. You should, of course, do your own research. However, I'm just presenting you some information that has, for one reason or another, not really been highly publicized over the last several years, even though the information is out there. However, I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you use seed oils at home? And if you don't, what do you use instead? Please leave your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading through them today and into the week. All right, I'd like to take a super quick moment and introduce the sponsor of today's episode, Gundry MD, which is an awesome company founded by Dr. Stephen Gundry, a cardiologist, a heart surgeon, as well as the director for the Center of Restorative Medicine. And Dr. Gundry's big thing is to educate the public about a certain condition called leaky gut, which according to his research is largely caused by a toxin that comes into people's bodies when they eat all of this quote-unquote healthy food, the exact types of food that they have been taught to eat by the fraudulent food pyramid. And by the way, just as an aside, outside of this ad, the food pyramid that's been pushed onto this country by the federal government for the last 5 or 6 decades is indeed quite fraudulent, but that's a bigger topic for another day. Now, leaky gut syndrome is something that millions of Americans experience every single year. And some warning signs of it include things like weight gain, fatigue, problems with your digestive tract, stiff and achy joints, and even certain types of skin problems. And while a lot of those just sound like the normal signs of aging, according to Dr. Gundry, it's easy to conflate the signs of a leaky gut with just the normal signs of aging because leaky gut takes a long time, sometimes several years, to actually develop. And so people times often conflate the two. However, according to Dr. Gundry's research, you can actually fix the problem at its root if you know which exact toxins in which exact foods are causing it. And so if you'd like to learn more about this leaky gut condition, as well as Dr. Gundry's research into what's really causing it, you can simply head on over to gutcleanseprotocol.com/Roman. That's gutcleanseprotocol.com/Roman, and watch the video that Dr. Gundry put together. It's a free video that Dr. Gundry put together where he goes point by point through all of his research. The link to it will also be down in the description box below. Dr. Gundry, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode. And now let's head on back to the studio. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed. Most importantly, stay free.